G2, a nationwide leader in background checks and employment screening solutions. People G2 gives their clients access to the best human capital management and due diligence tools available. They are dedicated to helping their clients with all of their people-related decisions. To learn more, go to www.peopleg2.com. Talent Talk centers on the topics of talent recruitment and management, leadership development, company culture, and employee engagement. These are all timely topics for CEOs, entrepreneurs, HR professionals, and business leaders. We hope that as you tune in to listen each week, whether to the live broadcast or to the podcast on iTunes or iHeartRadio, that you hear something you can take away that will help you grow and impact your career in a positive way. And now, here's the host of the Talent Talk Radio Show, the founder and CEO of People G2, Chris Dyer.
Good afternoon and welcome to Talent Talk. Thank you for joining us. And as always, we have two fantastic guests lined up for you to talk about talent, talk about how they're managing talent, and hopefully, give us a few secrets on what the cool stuff they're doing, what they're thinking about, and how they're being successful. And that really is why this show exists. I love talking to business leaders, CEOs, authors, consultants, futurists, whatever it may be, and what should be thinking about, what we should be doing around talent. So we've had so many incredible stories and inspiring leaders over the years. I've been really fortunate to be able to put a lot of their stories into some of my books. The first one, The Power of Company Culture, was a bestseller when that came out. And then, of course, this year we released Remote Work, which was also a bestseller. Love to have you check those out if you want to catch up on those stories, find out what some of the best stories were from guests from our show, as well as, the stuff that I try to do. Talent Talk is live every Tuesday, 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. A lot of you know you can tune in to the TuneIn Network, OC Talk Radio. But we're also broadcasting this now on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter live. So on LinkedIn and Twitter, we are live interacting as well. So if you comment there, if you're retweeting, we will bring in the questions, we'll comment and sort of keep the conversation going as well. So don't forget to follow the hashtag @PeopleG2 the handle @PeopleG2 or the hashtag Talent Talk. And we will make sure to try to catch your comments, catch your suggestions, and keep that conversation going. My guests today are the Vice President of Product at Paradox, Josh Spears. We'll bring him in first. And then after the commercial break, we'll bring in leadership coach, Salomé Trambach, and see what he's got to say for us. But let's go ahead and get started. Our first guest today, as I mentioned, is Josh Spears, co-founder of Tratify, now Tratify by Paradox. And as a part of the Paradox family, they continue to simplify the way business, job seekers, and employees connect using the power of human insight. I definitely want to learn more about that. That sounds like a really good elevator pitch. But welcome to the show today, Josh.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So how are you? And, tell us a little bit more about you. What's important for us to know, for our conversation today?
Yeah, so I am doing fantastic. It's been a great year. As you kind of alluded to earlier in the year, around August, we actually were acquired by Paradox after a 10-year journey of kind of starting Tratify with my co-founder, Dan Science, back in 2011, and then taking that through to now joining Paradox. So it's been quite a year for us and the team. We're super excited for the path ahead with Paradox.
Yes, I know Dan is a past talent show guest, and we had him on, and you've gone through this, you said, this acquisition together. Why was this the right fit for you guys? It can be a great thing, it can be a terrible thing, it can be a hard thing, but it sounds like it's been a good thing for you guys. So why was it a good fit? And what do you sort of, what does the future look like?
Yeah, I think, of all the possible scenarios, this is potentially one of the best outcomes for us, in that we really found in Paradox a partner who kind of shares on a fundamental level our vision of kind of what a product should be, particularly in this talent acquisition space, and also our passion for just creating what we refer to as magical experiences. So from day one, core to our DNA at Tratify has always been, how do we create the fastest, most accurate predictive assessment in the market? How do we create something that is engaging for candidates and allows them to kind of go through the process in seconds versus many, many minutes. So I think what Paradox has done, which is really quite fascinating, is develop this conversational assistant, Olivia, that has conversations with candidates, and through those conversations can help them apply for positions, search for positions, even ask questions about kind of the role and the company over time. So as we partnered with Paradox initially, we saw there was a tremendous amount of overlap between kind of our shared vision and shared values in terms of what we built. And in a great way, this kind of happened organically. So we initially did start as partners, servicing kind of mutual clients together. And then through that relationship, saw there was a natural kind of union that could exist between the two of us and that we could be stronger together. And frankly, from my perspective, from Tradeify perspective, we've always been looking for a company like Paradox that had a platform by which all of this great assessment product and content that we've developed could be delivered and administered throughout the talent lifecycle.
Right. Well, I mean, M&As happen all the time. We hear about that, but I think what we hear about a little less is the sort of challenges that leaders face in that regard, right? So whether that's how do you maintain your culture, how do you help your people, maybe suddenly things explode, right? And you're now selling a lot more than you ever did before, right? And there's a lot of different types of things that are challenges. What was the experience like for you guys, and from a leadership perspective, and maybe how have you helped your team manage that change?
Yeah, so it was very challenging. I will say, particularly leading up to the point at which the deal was closed, we went through obviously a very extensive diligence process with the Paradox team, and as part of that, we were able to bring certain members of the company in who were part of that diligence. But generally, we had to kind of keep things under wraps because with as these things often happen, they don't always go through, and we didn't obviously want to get our team's hopes up prematurely. So I would say from a leadership perspective, that was fairly agonizing for myself and for Dan, who was our CEO and my co-founder, just because we Tradeify always adopted a very kind of transparent, above board style with our team. We want to share with our team both the highs and the lows of this journey because we're asking exceptional effort from them to build what we're building. So I think that was certainly a relief when we were finally able to make the announcement and let everyone know that this was happening. And then from that point through today, what we've really made every effort to do is just to kind of keep that communication going in terms of making sure that the transition, the deeper integration into Paradox is well communicated across all the teams so that everyone kind of is in the loop with what's going on and that there's always open channels of communication. And I think that particularly for us, those have been myself and Dan. So as leaders of Tradeify, we're still kind of making ourselves available, even in our new roles of Paradox, so that our team can come to us and kind of bring to us any issues or any questions or comments, and that we can kind of make ourselves available to serve in that purpose, which I think has been greatly appreciated by our team and has actually assisted in making kind of the transition happen much more smoothly.
Right. Well, I mean, one of the things that I think all leaders have been thinking about, talking about, or even impacted by is this great resignation or the great reshuffle that we've been seeing. I mean, it was COVID, it was work from home, and now people are willing to move, to change. I think some of the movement was just maybe halted, right? It was just sort of paused for a while during COVID, and now it got kind of pent up, and then now it's all sort of happening at once. But nonetheless, it's happening. Are there maybe 2 or 3 things that you think talent leaders should be focusing on, especially around the recruitment efforts, and maybe how do they maybe kind of translate that into their hopefully an improved hiring and retention strategy for new employees?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are a few things that are top of mind for me and for Paradox when it comes to helping our clients and helping others kind of deal with this challenging labor market. And I think, again, something that's core to our DNA is how do you create a very engaging, easy to use, low friction candidate experience. I think candidates have the power now. They have the optionality in the market to take any role. So when they are applying for a position within your organization, um, it's a necessity that you make that experience as easy, as low friction as possible, which is obviously something that we at Paradox take very seriously and build all our products with that lens. I also think communication is essential. So um, I think this is changing, but historically, you've seen an experience where a candidate will apply for a position, and then their application goes into a black hole of sorts, and they really don't have any insight into the process or where things stand or what they should be doing. I think the expectation now is that communication should be constant or consistent at very least, and that candidates can get the answers when they need the answers to the questions that they have, and they should understand where they are in the process and what next steps are. I also think that carries over to kind of post-hire. So communication is essential, particularly with hourly employees. So again, traditionally, hourly employees have kind of been a bit forgotten, I think, in the conversation around things like learning and development and engagement. And something that we've seen over the years, and we've actually built product and will continue to build product to address this, is that companies aren't doing a lot to engage and develop hourly employees. They again have been forgotten in the conversation. So I think the more that organizations can do for those employees, to offer them opportunities to be plugged into the company, to be a part of what the company's doing, as well as giving them opportunity to kind of see what path they might have in the company. I think that is crucial to keeping an employee engaged and retaining them longer term.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important, and I don't know. I feel like there's sometimes a disconnect. Sometimes there's maybe a lack of thought and like a holistic effort right across that entire process for everybody. We hear from people on this show that are top employers that really have it going, that they're thinking about every angle. They're thinking about it from every sort of stakeholder, every employee sort of perspective, and trying to create the best. You can't do it perfectly for everyone, but trying to create the best experience that they can, and even insert some sort of individual choices in that, right? To let employees sort of select how and when and where they sort of dive into things and how they become exposed to things in that process. That seems to be the best. And yet we're talking to people who are struggling, right? It's clear that some major part hasn't been thought about, some major part hasn't been dealt with. So do you have any suggestions there? I mean, it's great to say you got to have it all figured out, but if you don't yet,
Yeah.
how do you cross that chasm,
Yeah, I think the advice I would give for any organizations who are struggling now is to really kind of take a step back and process and kind of look at the end-to-end kind of workflow and experience that currently exists for your talent, and take some time to really audit that process and look at it from a candidate's perspective or our consumer's perspective, because I think something that we've been seeing in HR technology for the past few years is this transition more to products that feel like consumer grade products, and really they should be. We should be creating experiences that stand shoulder to shoulder with an Instagram, with a Snapchat. They should be as engaging. They should be as easy to use as those products. And historically, the applications that have been built in the space have not been. They've been clunky and hard to navigate and boring. So I think an organization really needs to step back and take kind of stock of what that workflow looks like, and then find vendors, find solutions that that kind of meet that need for this modern candidate. And that does require some change, I think, and some ability to invest in researching what's out there. But I do think it's something that candidates do expect today, and it could very well be a reason that a candidate chooses not to apply with their organization if they have a poor experience applying for a role with an organization. So I think all these things need to be taken into account, and you really in many ways are making that first impression with that candidate when they're applying, and you need to take advantage of that opportunity to put your best foot forward, much like the candidate is putting their best foot forward as they're applying and interviewing.
Yeah. Well, I know during the last, year and a half or so, we have some people in our society that have done some amazing things, these frontline workers and people who've really been out there. But I think one of the unsung heroes of this time has been recruiters. They have had to do so much, and when they have been effective, right, they've been able to. We've had people on the show that they were able to staff 5,000 nurses in New York, right, during when New York had was the worst of the pandemic, right? They've been able to sort of do some things and really help companies out. They've been that lifeline, right, to find the people that we need to ultimately fill those positions to do that really difficult work. But I think one of the concerns is that these recruiters, they're getting harder to find, especially good ones, and they can be getting burnt out. They might be at risk to leave. So, what should companies be thinking about in trying to help them, create some sort of balance, avoid the burnout, be able to retain those key people?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Chris, because it is something that we see consistently in the market in terms of organizations having less and less resources to recruit, which means smaller recruiting teams and longer hours and more burnout. And I think what's important, again, is that an organization finds the right solutions and tools that can assist their team. And I often think there is some fear from recruiters when an organization is looking at solutions and tools, a fear that potentially their role could be replaced, or they could somehow be kind of shoved out of the organization. And I think actually what we try to do at Paradox and Tradeify is create solutions and tools that can get the recruiter away from what we call the BS work, the boring stuff. We want recruiters to spend time actually talking to candidates and doing things that drew them to recruiting in the first place, things they love, the human elements of recruiting, and take all the things like scheduling and all the administrative work and offload that to technology so that they can spend their time on what really matters and what's important. So I think that's the best thing, honestly, an organization can do, is to really give their team a robust suite of tools that they can deploy that gives them time back, gives them the opportunity to, again, really focus on the things they love about the role versus all the things that really just suck up time and make them ultimately unhappy with what they're doing.
Well, it's fascinating that technology is supposed to make us more efficient and do all these great things for us so we can spend more time doing the human things, right?
That's right.
And yet I feel like every person I know is looking for a job. There's sort of the process, the whole thing is like not helping with that, right? It's essentially completely automated. No one's really talking to each other. There's just sort of this complete disconnect in the process. So I know your company's on the leading edge of using technology to support a very, person-driven, area in every business. So from talent recruitment and engagement, I guess, how do we support HR leaders in I guess, embracing the right technology and helping them eliminate the BS so they can have more of those conversations?
Yeah, I think for us, education is key, and removing some of these, I think, unfair misunderstandings of what some of these solutions do and what they offer. And again, I think we never want to kind of replace a recruiter or take away someone's job. We want to build solutions that, again, allow them to get back to what really brings them joy and happiness in their work as well. And we also believe that by giving them time to spend with candidates, that it will be a better outcome, not only for the organization, but for the candidate as well. The candidate feel more engaged and more listened to, and not spending as much time having to interface solely with the technology as they are now. So again, I think it's just that education piece, and also listening. I think listening to the recruiters, listening to the challenges they have, and organizations really spending the time and effort to try and figure out a plan to use technology to help those recruiters use their time more efficiently.
Yeah, yeah. Have you seen, sort of an uptick in, I guess maybe the struggles or in the retention of hourly workers?
We have, yes. So we are seeing struggles with retention in the hourly space. Again, I just think we're in this interesting time where there's certainly an abundance of optionality for the hourly worker in the market. There's a tremendous amount of roles they could take. I also think this isn't something that has been talked about um, a ton as part of this labor shortage conversation, but I think the gig economy is also significantly contributing to these changes that we're seeing because it offers that flexibility and that ability to kind of set your own hours and kind of work for yourself, so to speak. So, um, and that's really for us, I think, our sweet spot from a Paradox and Trader Fair perspective. We do um, focus on kind of hourly space, not exclusively, but we prioritize it, and particularly for what we're doing with kind of post hire in terms of learning, development, and coaching. Um, that is going to be a focus for us in the hourly space because again, that audience I believe has been traditionally underserved and kind of forgotten. So we want to create tools that can not only help with selection of those hourly workers, but also help organizations retain those workers and provide engagement opportunities for them as well as development opportunities.
Well, I've got a teenage son, and I can tell you, I've sat with him and worked with him on, as someone he's an hourly employee, right, coming in and trying to get jobs, and it's pretty disastrous. It's pretty terrible at, the terrible automation, having to repeat things over and over again, the communication, it's like, could you have designed anything with user experience less in mind, right? And it's crazy. Like I thought we'd be so much farther along. I mean, we've been far better off when I was a kid, just written an application and walked in and handed it to a manager. I had far better experience than what he's having, filling out hundreds and hundreds of these forms and using all these different like recruiting sites and things where the disconnect, right? And the noise is just immense, to where he is having a hard time navigating it, and when we went against the grain, we literally went into a place and filled out an app and he got a job on the spot, right? Wow. We bypassed all of the junk that's supposed to be there that never got him anything,
Yep.
So to your point, we have a long way to go.
We do.
And I don't know how much of that is generational either. I mean, I was certainly willing to go do all that work. I think he would prefer to do it all on the phone or do over text. I mean, we have 5 generations in the workplace right now. What are some of the challenges, or I guess even opportunities that come with managing that many different generations?
Yeah. So I really think, and I kind of look at this from a product lens because that's what I do. But I do think, often in kind of our industry, there's this view that there's vast differences between the different kind of age demographics, and frankly, what we've seen is that there's actually more similarities in kind of how people use products and technology than there are differences, and again, an easy kind of frictionless experience is appreciated by people of all ages. Whether you're a young person who has been using an iPad from the age of 3, or if you're someone in your 50s or 60s that has been learning technology over the last few years. I think it's important to create again these touch points that allow people to get more quickly to, like you were describing with your son, Chris, this human interaction, this human experience that in some ways has been lost from our current kind of workflows and experiences. So both from the candidate side and the recruiter side, we want to create that opportunity to kind of engage and to get kind of something back for all the effort that's put into all these experiences. So an example there that is something that we actually did a few years ago is we created an output from our assessment that is taken as part of the apply process that could be shared with candidates. So most of the time when you take an assessment as part of the apply process, it again goes into the void and you're not really sure how you did or what it means for your next steps. Well, we actually have a report that we give back to the candidate that an organization can share and say, hey, thanks for doing that. Here's your report. Hey, learn a little bit about yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are things you can improve upon? And I think that's something that for us, we've seen candidates of all ages appreciate. Something that feels like, again, a human touch that can give back to them, that can say, okay, we're not just a faceless organization that views you as a warm body. We actually care about you in this process. Whether or not we actually do hire you, we still realize you're a human being,
Right.
and we want to respect you and your time that you put into this. So I think just, again, building good products that kind of simplify these experiences and allow people to get back to the human interactions. It applies across the board.
So important. It's definitely so important. Well, last and most important question, how can people get a hold of you? How can they find out more about your company?
Sure. So you can visit paradox.ai is our website to get more information. And then I'm also on LinkedIn, and my email is josh.spears@paradox.ai.
Josh, thank you so much for being on our show today and being a guest. Some fantastic insights, and love to see the trajectory and the progress you guys are having over there. So love to have you come back at some point and keep us up to speed with what you guys are doing.
Thanks so much, Chris. Appreciate it.
All right, we're right back after this quick commercial break and bring in my second guest, Salomé Trambach.
Imagine buying a newspaper and discovering that the news you're reading is 6 months old. There isn't much that stays the same for 6 months, and the same thing goes for background checks. In a time when so much outdated information is being passed around, it's good to know that People G2 offers something different. At People G2, we provide today's intelligence, not yesterday's news. Our value-added approach offers you a fully FCRA-compliant solution that includes up-to-the-minute information. By combining industry-leading technology with old-school human investigation, People G2 is able to give you information that is accurate right now, delivered quickly through our online system or integrated with your HR system. So ask yourself, are you comfortable working with old news, or are you ready for a different kind of background check company? Visit peopleg2.com or call 800-630-2880. That's 800-630-2880 or peopleg2.com.
Welcome back to the Talent Talk Radio Show. In case you missed my first guest, don't worry, you can get Josh's interview on our podcast. We'll have it up in a few weeks. Or don't forget, we are live streaming right now on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. You can go and watch the interviews as well for this show or any other past shows in the last maybe 6 months or so. We've been doing this live thing. And don't forget, you can also go to talenttalkradio.com. You can subscribe there. Of course, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're there. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. All right, we're going to bring in my next guest, whose name I've been practicing all day, so hopefully I get it right. Salomé Trambach, we'll see how I did. Public speaker and leadership coach. She's a personal growth and leadership coach who empowers leaders to lead with impact through self-awareness, mindfulness, and courage. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. And you did pronounce my name more or less really good.
Okay, close enough. Close enough.
I think so. Close enough. Very good.
All right. I didn't completely slaughter it. So I'm sure you get that all the time with both your names. My last name seems to trip people up sometimes.
Dyer, right?
Yeah. And it's funny, there's a street in my county that people know is Dyer Road. And yet when they come and ask my name, they always say Dwyer. They say it wrong, even though they say the street name right. So it's this weird, mental thing. So I just gave it up. Okay, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Well, how are you? And what else should we know about you for our conversation today?
Yeah, I'm good. I am actually in Copenhagen, so in Denmark, far away from you. And it's late evening here, around 10:30 p.m.
Wow.
And I guess what I would love to kind of share with the audience, which might be relevant for our conversation today, is that I am multicultural. So I'm Danish on my mother's side, and I'm French on my dad's side, with some extra roots from a lot of other places. But it's important because I do think that it defines me, both my multiculturalism, but also having lived in a lot of different countries, growing up in an international environment. And it's really had a huge impact in how I view the world. And it's also played a role in my passion and dedication towards personal development and leadership, and just, the journey within, and wanting to get to know myself better in order to understand the world better and to show up better as a human and as a coach, which is what I do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
Well, first, thank you for staying up so late to talk with us. This is a live
my
show,
pleasure.
so it's hard to move it around. But yeah, we always enjoy having guests from all around the world, and sometimes the timing works, sometimes it doesn't. But I think what you just articulated is the kind of guest, the kind of person that I really enjoy talking to. Someone who is, enjoys understanding different people and different environments and different situations and why they work or why they don't work, right? And is inquisitive enough to say, I want to know more about that, or I want to know more about that person. I think the other end of that spectrum are those kinds of people frustrate me, right? That just don't care to know why this works, or why that manager is good, or why that employee worked out, right? They just think it's luck and happenstance, or they just don't care. I don't know. So
Yeah, I agree with you.
But in your own words, since you work with so many specific people and great leaders, or maybe even some not so great leaders, so you know what not to do. But how would you describe a great and an empowering leader?
I think that, to me, a great and empowering leader is really three key things. There are a lot of things that can play a part, but I think the first main thing and the starting point is self-awareness. So really having that courage to kind of look inwards and, dare to question yourself, about, how good you are, or just how it is that you view the world, like you're mentioning before, right? I think that it's being self-aware also means that you're very aware of your own values, and you're able to be, congruent, and you're able to live by them. And also you invite your external environment to kind of come in and play a part in that as well. So you value other people's opinions, and you are curious about what the world has to say. I think number two, really important, if you want to be a really great leader, is actually understanding your power. So having an awareness of power dynamics, because it's really something that is key to creating trust in a team, an organization, in life in general. And so I think that is super important and not talked about enough in leadership today, if I had to be honest. So yeah, I think, those things lead to the third part, which is really around creating trust. And that means, creating a safe space, creating environments where people feel like their voices are heard and their opinions matter. Yeah.
Yeah, those are really important. And I'm not sure we've ever even talked about that idea of power on this show. I know I read with my book club a couple years back, the 48 Laws of Power. And it was really interesting how uncomfortable they were even discussing, the book has no ethics applied to it. It just says, here are the laws, here are the situations where power can happen, and here's how you should deal with it. It doesn't really tell you whether you should or should not implement those strategies, right? That's your own conversation to have. But it's like, the simple one is, don't make your boss look bad. Like rule number one, right? Your boss has power over you. Don't make your boss look like an idiot, or you're going to have a problem, right? It shouldn't be that way. You should be able to be totally truthful and transparent. But like, if you're going to make your boss look like an idiot, you're going to have a problem, right? Your boss has some power at some level to, decide what you work on, or if you get promoted, or do you get a raise, or whatever. So,
and that's so interesting, because that's actually like a problem, right? And that's why we need to talk more about that, because that is not the way it should be at all. And this is also where cultures play a part, because everybody views leadership in many different ways, depending on your business culture. And yeah, it has a lot of aspects, and I'm sure you can create a great show about that in the future.
But I think it's fascinating that it's like maybe almost something we don't want to talk about. I think there was some conversation in the last 2 years, I think, around the Me Too movement, especially in the United States, about the level of power that certain people had over other people, right? And then how that maybe impacted those situations, or maybe created more opportunities for them to happen and less opportunities for the victim of those to be able to stop it, right? So we know that power dynamics are out there. Are there situations where the power dynamic is good? I mean, I can think of the negatives, right? But I think, are there places where the leaders can use their power for good, and it's something they should be leaning on?
Absolutely. I mean, I think with anyone in power, if you do create that self-awareness, so if you do question yourself, then it's an opportunity for you to use your power in a positive way. And if you are self-aware, and if you are, a leader that is authentic as well, you use your power to kind of equalize power, so to put everybody at the same level. It's really just about understanding it, so knowing that it has an impact, knowing that you as a leader will be seen in a different way, and that your words, your actions have impact. And so you need to use it in the right way. You need to include people in the conversation. You need to create a safe space so that people feel that they can trust you. And it's really an art, but it's possible. And so it's just about actually just acknowledging, okay, this is the situation. I'm not running away from it. I'm embracing it. How can I make a positive impact?
Well, I'm sure that you have learned a lot about leadership working in 7 different countries, probably more cultures inside of those countries from a traditional cultural sense. And then you have your business cultures that are rapidly different, right, from business to business. So maybe what are some of the big things that you've learned as you've sort of, run across the globe working in all those different places?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely fun, and it's super challenging to go and work, in a lot of different places. But I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that for a lot of different reasons. The last places that I worked internationally, because Denmark is my home and that is where I am now, were Mexico and then China.
Wow.
And I think that what you really realize is that the way that you see the world is definitely not the same depending on where you are. And so what I learned specifically is really to, like you mentioned at the beginning, actually you talked about curiosity. And so one of the leadership traits that really become important from working across the globe, or working with people that are sitting in all sorts of different places around the world, is the need for traits such as curiosity, for humbleness, for presence, courage. And I have an interesting story, is that when I was working in China a couple of years ago, I was working for a Danish company, and it's a company where half of the team was Danish, and so from Denmark, and the other half were Chinese, so from China. And you could not find 2 cultures that are more different. In China, or at least traditionally in the business culture, it's not normal to voice your opinion. You follow your leader, and you definitely do not question their authority. In Denmark, it's very flat hierarchies in most companies. And so it's much more normal and much more common to give your leader feedback and to share your opinion. And so I was initiating a feedback session, which involved all team members, and everybody had to, on a one-to-one basis, share feedback with one another. And management was a part of that. And I had done it several times before, and I really had to realize, okay, this is not going to work in the same way, because you need to adapt. If I want to get the results that we need out of it, then we need to reassess what it is that needs to be done. So I think it's really about taking a step back, asking the question, what is it that we need to get out of? What is it that we need to get out of the situation? How do we get there best? How do we make people more comfortable? And you have to start with yourself. And that's a key lesson in everything. It's, if you want people to be honest, if you want people to share their opinions, if you want people to be vulnerable, you have to start with yourself. So as a leader, it's really great if you can start by, looking at yourself and being like, this is where I would give myself feedback, and you do it in front of people who you want, if you want them to give you feedback, for example. So It's great. I think it's just about being open-minded, regardless. So I learned a lot of those lessons living abroad, but I think you can learn them, also just working with people that are just different. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've noticed there's a certain connection between great leaders and those that are authentic to themselves or their style or what their belief system, their values, right? But I will say, I want to kind of ask you and maybe even challenge you here on this, the idea of being, totally vulnerable and totally like critical of yourself in front of your team, because I have seen a disconnect with that, because I've seen a lot of people get very fearful if their leader is too vulnerable. Like, and then it comes off as like they're sloppy, they don't know what they're doing, so like, what is that balance between being authentic, being willing to say, yeah, I made a mistake, or maybe I wouldn't have done it this way, or, I've learned from this lesson, there's kind of a balance there between like just telling them everything and and oversharing to the point where you take up too much space in the room, right? There's not enough space for the team members to be there, right? To support them. I always feel like, what they say, the crap rolls downhill, right? So it's like, but I feel like with vulnerability, actually, I feel like it goes uphill. Like, you can go to your boss and say, oh, I feel like I totally struggled on this thing. But do we tell that to our team, right? Are we that authentic with them in that way? So what are your thoughts on how do we deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really, really valid point. And I know that it is, I mean, you said it, it's all about balance. And honestly, it's all in moderation. So we can never go to an extreme. And that's why we always have to assess certain situations. Vulnerability can create miracles in many ways, because it can really create a lot of connection, a lot of engagement, a lot of things. But you have to be aware of your environment and understand where is what fitting. So of course that requires a little bit of, first of all, reflection. So when it comes to being an authentic leader, self-awareness, as I mentioned as well, is really a key aspect of that, being a great empowering leader. And it's really about, first of all, reflecting within yourself. Because I think what often happens with vulnerable leaders who kind of spill a little bit too much is that they haven't taken enough time to really spend, first think about it within themselves and figure out, okay, what makes sense to actually share. So first you need to, do a lot of self-reflection and assess, okay, what's been going on in the situation? What is it that I feel I need to share, and what value is going to come out of that? So how is it going to be potentially received? So really being aware of what the impact might be. And I think in any case, it's impossible to know whether or not you're going to 100% go too far, because you will always be in a situation as a leader where you're not going to be able to please everybody. You're going to have very different team members on your team. Some people might think that you haven't gone far enough. Some people will think that you've gone too far. And so it's really about reining that in and saying, what am I comfortable doing? And what do I feel will feel good? Honestly, like, it really is about that. And then, taking the consequences as they come, because you're not going to be able to please everybody. So, feel it out, test it out potentially with a person first, a co-leader potentially.
Right. Yeah, we've done exercises with teams where, you go around and have everyone share, but I always push on the leaders that they need to go last, right? Because if they're
hard.
It's hard. But if they show up and say, I'm in a great mood or I'm in a bad mood, people feel pressure to, like, if they say, I'm in the best mood ever, I had this great thing happen, and then you go to someone on the team and they're like, oh, but my dog just died. Like, do they really want to share that because they don't want to disrupt the great energy that the leader just brought up? So I'm always pushing.
Yeah. And I hear it's like, I guess it's also really sensing your team. Where are you in your team dynamics and your team development? Because at some point the team is going to be comfortable enough to just share by themselves and then definitely go last. But if you're in a team where nobody dares to say anything, you have to go first.
Yeah.
Right. So you assess.
Yeah. And maybe you can kind of show them how it's done and all that. But, we've also seen where, Excuse me there. I had a sneeze. I was able to mute it so everyone
No
didn't hear.
worries.
But,
Oh, that's what happened. Amazing.
That was the pause. So I thought dead air was better than me sneezing on air. So anyways, but yeah, I think, it's, if you go around the room and people are struggling, then I've always suggested to leaders, you need to shut up and deal with their stuff first, right? We need to show them that if they're struggling, if they're having a hard time, that we can help them, support them, and be there for them. Then they're all okay and they're generally doing well, then that's a good opportunity to share where you're at, right? Or maybe where you're struggling, where they could help you, right? And so you made the point of it being balanced. And that's the only sort of way I've been able to balance it, is by kind of making that rule of, they're struggling, I need to shut up. If they're okay, then I can talk a bit more. So because you can't just be one way all the time, right? Or else no one's ever getting what they need overall. I think that's.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think it's good to, to have, different types of practices. I mean, we need to try different things out in leadership and see, what works, and different things will work for different people. So also, again, being authentic, don't just do whatever some book is telling you to do. Like, feel it out, try it out. And if it doesn't feel right, don't do it.
Right. So, are there other ways you think that leaders can show up more authentically, or, I guess if you're trying to coach someone who's maybe been struggling with this, but what are some of the things that they should be thinking about right away?
I think, first of all, what I've seen a lot is that there's a lot of comparing. So as a leader, sometimes you can struggle a little bit with your own, confidence and your own ability to really show up the way you want to. And I think it's really important for everyone to really just acknowledge that nobody's perfect, and that it's okay to, in that way, be more real. And that it's okay to, acknowledge what it is that you're really good at, your strengths, and really focus on those. And at the same time, be open and honest about some of the things that aren't that great. I mean, you were just having a conversation as well about recruitment. And what it comes back to as well with, great leaders, is that if you are aware of what you're good at and what you're not so great at, you can also hire the people that really, match you in the best way possible. And so I think it's really about focusing on that as well, right? And opening up to wanting to learn more about what other, blind spots do you have, what other limitations do you have. Asking for feedback is a great way of becoming smarter about yourself.
Right.
Yeah. And to be honest, I think also, I mean, if I use a lot of meditation in my coaching as well, because that's something that's very dear to my heart and something that's worked for me. And I would honestly recommend any leader out there as well to find a mindfulness practice that works. Because once you take that time for self-reflection, whether it is to meditate or just to journal in the evening about how, you think your day went, or, just asking yourself a couple of questions and writing them down, it can really help creating that little break in the day to just reflect and see, where is something that I should be proud of, and where is something where I need to be better.
So the mindfulness sort of technique, or having that a meditation or something in there, I think really what it is the opportunity for your brain to be bored, right? To not be occupied and not to be stimulated. And so why do so many good ideas come to us in the shower, or when we're taking a walk, or, you know what I mean, or we're driving in our cars? Because we've limited the stimuli. Right. And our brain has an opportunity to go back and start processing things. So either you can take more showers or more drives in the car with no radio on, I guess, or you could, meditate. I think that's a really, really great one. And sometimes people feel unsure of how to do it, or even concerned they're not doing it correctly. I think if you just turn on one of those apps, you can do a guided one, you can do an unguided one. Give yourself, just try 30 minutes. I have seen sometimes you get really great, kind of clarity in the moment, but I think sometimes you get it later on because your brain just had time, right? It's like sleeping. Our brain does so much work while we're sleeping. And it's the same thing when we stop during the day to journal, to meditate, to do something to allow ourselves, not on our phones, not watching TV, not doing something where our brain has to be active, but you bring up a really great point. Are there any particular ones that you think are better than others that maybe someone might want to try?
You mean in terms of meditation techniques
Yeah.
I mean, I think, okay, so first of all, I think it is like you're saying, people can either be a little bit scared of it or have these expectations towards what is it that it's supposed to give me right away. So first of all, for anyone listening, really just leave out any expectation. You can sit, you can lie down. I mean, lie down, you might risk falling asleep, but you
Yes.
can stand up. I think, take away all the noise of what you hear from the outside world and just kind of what feels right for you in that moment. You can close your eyes, you can keep a soft gaze, whatever it is. And it doesn't matter what happens in those 10 minutes, doesn't matter if a million thoughts come to you, just accept whatever is coming. Whatever you're feeling, accept it. I really think acceptance is a key word when it comes to meditation, is just letting whatever happens and not feeling like, oh God, it's supposed to be this way. And oh no, now I'm thinking about this and that's not what I'm supposed to do during these 10 minutes. Forget it, because then you will never appreciate that break that you can give yourself in the day. And if you realize, it's not for you, I have some friends who are like, I'm in awe of what you're doing, Salomé, but it's just not for me. I go for a run. I'm like, great, whatever works for you. You can take a walk in the forest. It doesn't matter. Don't get caught up with what people are saying. If it feels right for you, that's what you do. I've tried a lot of different meditation techniques, and I actually practice different kinds. So there's one called Anapanya, which is just about noticing the breath, and it's really easy because that's all that you do, and it's something to, in a way, focus on, but you're stepping away from your thoughts a little bit. And I mean, if anyone ever needs more advice on that, you can always reach out to me. I have a load.
Well, speaking of which, how can people find out more about you? What's the best way for them to connect or reach out?
Definitely on my LinkedIn, or on my website. So my website is my name, SalomeTrambach.com, and it's the exact same name on my LinkedIn. Definitely contact me there, and let's have conversations.
And if anyone is challenged when it comes to spelling names
Yes.
like myself, Salome. The E actually has the little, I don't know what you call it in French, but the little,
It's
in Spanish, but yeah, the little mark.
Yeah, but don't. So that one, when you write the website, forget about that one. So just
Right.
SalomeTrambach.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, for staying up so late and talking with us. You brought so many wonderful ideas here, and I hope everyone else got some fantastic insights like I did. And we would love to have you come back on the show, sometime in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for tuning in to today's show. Hopefully you've gained something you can use in your own career in a positive way. Until next time, do what you love and show the world how talented you can be today.
You've been listening to Talent Talk Radio, brought to you by People G2.